validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt up on the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher constantly, making my own climb. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. Whoa. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield. I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield.
How you doing, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to This and That. I'm your host, Xander, where we're talking about this, that, and everything in between. Um, we actually had a lot of wild things happening today. One of the reasons, well, quite a few reasons why we were late this afternoon. I just got to tell you, it's just been a real roller coaster today. First, we just found out over the last hour that apparently the war between United States and Iran seemed to be over. The negotiations between the United States and Iran uh, have led to the lack of nuclear weapons the world shortly thereafter the signing of the negotiation. While we understand that um, the Iran is making claims that nothing has been finalized, and that's probably because w- while everything has been discussed in the back end or behind closed doors, the true contract hasn't been signed. And until the contract is signed, nothing is official. But Donald Trump has made the claims that things are officially over between Iran and the United States, and a resolution has been made. Now, one of the things that's important about this, I'm going to be trying to squeeze this into Monday's discussion along with everything else that I was going to be talking about on Monday. because one of the things we do on Monday is discuss the things that negatively impact your ability to make, save, and invest money. Now, the wild part about what has been going on is the fact that I just finished explaining to Stephen yesterday that the volatility and the swings in the markets right now are only that way because of the geopolitical conflicts, and they're only that way because of the massive changes in the decision making process of the current president. Not necessarily because his decisions are positive or negative, but because from one important scenario to the next, he said, "Hi, how you doing? Good to see you." Um, I bought a lot of good things. Shit, good thing. Because, like I was telling you yesterday, like this will change dramatically. And one of the reasons why the stock has been so volatile since Donald Trump has got into office was because things switch so quickly. One day he's talking in favor of something, the next day he's talking outside of his favor, and the market shifts with his very words. One day he's in what seems to be a business partnership with Elon Musk, and the next thing they're like Cain and Abel, right? And these changes in position, whether it's nobly motivated because of new information that he found out, or if it's just based on indecisiveness, the fact is that the market is not going to be as stable as it would be in a market where a president is consistently in one direction, whether it's a positive or negative direction. If they're consistent in that direction, the market is stable in that direction. So that's one of the reasons why we were just talking about this yesterday. Like I said, if you would have been like, man, I'm going to wait until I do this, 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 and this, and then you'd have been calling yourself trying to get stuff done in October, November. I said in February the war was going to end itself in June. I didn't know exactly when. I mean, you can only say hello so many times before I make you take a time out, buddy. But hello to you too. So I did say in February that it would resolve itself in June, and I wasn't sure if exactly which day it would happen because on a macro level, um, things weren't going the way they were supposed to be going, and I just assumed, based on the way things progress when Donald Trump is involved, that it should wrap itself up before summer, right? Basically right after school ends. That's kind of right when summer starts. And as I projected it, around about that time, that's when the war actually is claimed to be over. Now, it's not officially done because they still have to sign contracts, but allegedly, uh, Trump has called back some military attacks. Uh, I can't claim that it is in relation to what the Supreme Court and the Senate did with two different agreements, as we were just talking about in last Monday's show. But we did discuss that. I mean, allegedly, he would have less than 30 days to wrap this stuff up. And like Michael says, all it takes is one really good military strike, and I mean, it would be done. So part of the reason why we were late today. But while we do not let the sun rise without going live, we don't always. That's why we ask you guys to like, subscribe, and then hit those notification buttons so that you know we're here. And then also go and check out the membership because I try my best to keep you guys up to date with all of the detailed information behind the scenes as it relates to all the information that we cover on the show. Um, as I mentioned, since we cover on Mondays how politics negatively impacts your ability to make, save, and invest money, this would have been a huge investment miss if you did not have any investments in at the time of this particular endeavor, which could benefit you or it could hurt you because, you know, if you were planning on making massive bets in a few weeks, as soon as the market gets a hold of what just happened over the last hour, which the market was closed over the last hour, uh, post market bets will start happening, which will go into effect at the first sign of the next market opening, which will be tomorrow morning. So a lot of things are going to change with certain stocks tomorrow. And you can see that some things may go down because the market is shifting, and some things may go completely to the right based on other market shifts. And that's one of the reasons why I tell you guys, you should be really paying attention to how politics occur when it negatively directly impacts your investment opportunities, because you could have been making shit tons of money off of some of the stocks that were still is over 20% in returns on investments. Now, today we were supposed to be negotiating your exit strategies when we were talking about getting terminated. So you guys got to remember that we're live 7 nights a week, where we covered different topics every night of the week. We've already explained Monday, Tuesdays, we talk about different ways to make, save, and invest money, different ways to budget it, and different ways to look at it. Wednesdays, we discuss different countries around the world that we can invest in. And then Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, today being Thursday, we talk about personal development, self improvement, and other such topics that aid you in your ability to improve yourself. Relationship topics, negotiations, socialization, building your brand, raises, promotions, retirement. And today we're talking about getting fired. And then we give you guys all the information you need to build your 20 and 30-year plan, because it's highly important. Where you want to be at in your future requires you to make those steps today in order to get there. But if you don't know where you want to be at, if you just don't want to be broke, how do you accomplish that? You have to have finite, detailed expectations that are reasonably capable of being met, and then reverse engineer what steps need to be taken to meet that. Now, um, Sunday, the one of the last shows we have out of the week, we do questions and comments from the fans. So if you guys have appropriately structured questions for appropriate topics, we answer them. If they're inappropriate questions, we block you, and if there's inappropriately structured questions for appropriate topics, we block you again. So you don't have to agree with this. You just got to have to be appropriate about it. You can completely disagree, like Sterling has come onto the show and disagreed quite a few times. We really appreciate it when he comes on. He articulates an alternative point of view, and he comes on live. He actually clicks the link, approve the mics, approve the camera, and he comes on in real time, and he intelligently articulates his objections, but it is still received and able to be heard without condemnation. And that's kind of what we want to do here. This is an open mic, open forum policy where you guys can say appropriately what needs to be said related to the topic. So, or on a shorthand, any strawman topic that I allow to occur. Now, topic we were going to talk about on Monday, and now I'm going to try to see if I can phase this into that topic for Monday, because this was late breaking news that happened over the last hour, and it's going to be one of the things that delayed me from coming in onto the show, and that is one of the reasons why we come onto the show far later than we normally do today. Usually we have some technical issues or something to that effect, but I was like, oh my God, it was it was a lot of stuff today. Uh, Dude was talking about a lot of things, but and I be trying to bring you guys late breaking news, but I'm not a news channel. I'm not a political advocate channel. I'm not a Republican or a Democrat channel. I'm not a left wing or right wing channel. I really only talk about how uh, geopolitical trades and geopolitical involvements directly impact your ability as the average consumer to make, save, and invest money. So when I touch on topics of politics, it is directly because it will change what's about to happen with your money. And if you were high rolling on certain stocks, or if you were delaying your investments on certain stocks due to the current political conflicts with the Strait of Hormuz, the changes that just happened over the last hour would change the way you invest tomorrow. So luckily for Steven, he made some changes in investment ideas yesterday, because the change that just happened today would change his stocks for tomorrow. So he bought in this morning on the last line of things that would have benefited him financially right before Donald Trump's announcements that would change the way the market decisions happen tomorrow. That's how quickly this show tells you about something that happens in politics, and it actually could impact your dollars. So certain stocks that are down right now that is going to start going up, you would have gotten them cheaper yesterday than what you're going to get them tomorrow. And that's one of the reasons why we told you what we told you yesterday and what we're telling you what we're telling you today. We bring all the information together, right? Um, but today's topic is about quitting your job. And we've actually got a lot of stuff for you. We're gonna try to carry it for hopefully 3 hours. Even though we're an hour late, we're gonna try to cover it in about 3 hours. Uh, I can't cover it too close to four, but we're going to try to cover it between 2 to 3 hours. Now, think about quitting your job because quitting your job isn't just saying goodbye. It's going to be a high stakes negotiation. You guys remember that. We've talked about this last week. You're negotiating your last paycheck, your reputation, and your future opportunities. So, what if I told you that with the right playbook that you can leave any job, contract, or partnership not with a burned bridge, but with a stronger network and a better career ahead? I know a lot of people are going to be like, bullshit. You guys got to recognize first and foremost that this is going to require you not to flip tables and Austin 316 flip off your boss and pee all over the desk and punch that one person in the face that you don't like and curse out the others. You know what I mean? Those mic drop moments where you just get off your chest all the negative things that you wanted to get off your chest as you're being drug out of the building by security. That behavior is not going to get this accomplished. But recognizing that a change in career is needed, recognizing that before they ask you to leave or because they're asking you to leave, you are willing to leave under certain conditions and you're going to negotiate this. That's the type of situation we're talking about. Now, a lot of people think leaving a job is a moment of surrender, that you have to be handed in a notice and that's it. They give you a pink slip, you're gone. And typically, back in the day, it was a pink slip. You know, you have an envelope. In that envelope is a pink piece of paper, and that pink piece of paper explains get the fuck out. Right? These days, it's a text message, don't come in. It's a phone call, don't show up. You know, it's a message and an email you've been taken off the schedule. It's not an official pink slip. It's just like you no longer have any responsibilities at this business, and before you come back to work they have to talk to you in the office with upper management and all of this other things, and then have that I'm sorry to inform you conversation, right? And a lot of people believe that because this is usually catches you off guard. Because no matter how good or how bad you are at your job, a lot of people who's been there forever believe that they're either untouchable if they're not performing correctly on the job, or they believe that they're doing exceptional work that they don't deserve to be relieved. And when they're being relieved, they don't have an articulated defense because the average person doesn't log all of their performance. They don't piece together their years of benefit to the company. They do not have detailed articulations of every sacrifice that was made for the sake of the company. So all you have is over the last 3 weeks or the last 2 months, you may have come in on your days off and pulled in all this extra overtime. But that's more of a favor to you than to them because while they might have been shorthanded, you needed the money. So, you got to really think about, did you really benefit the company or did y'all kind of, was it like a mutual benefit when you start trying to argue you're out? But you have to understand, a graceful exit isn't about being passively polite because I'm definitely not saying that you've got to kiss ass on the way out. It's a deliberate, structured process. It's about preparing, sequencing your conversations, negotiating the terms, documenting your transitions, and keeping those relationships strong long after you've left. Right now, in tonight's show, I'm going to give you a step by step guide to negotiating your exit like a pro, turning a departure into a moment of leverage where we're going to be breaking down the entire process so that you can leave cleanly, effectively, and with all of your relationships intact. Now, before we get into the playbook, let's look at a lot of minds in the minefield real quick. Most bad exits, the kind that wreck your reputation and slam doors shut, are caused by three basic mistakes, and we have to get through those first. They're completely avoidable, yet they happen all the time. The first mistake is publicly announcing your departure too early, or even worse, to the wrong person, right? The office grapevine is not your friend. When your boss hears you're leaving from someone else, you've instantly lost control of the narrative. Trust is broken before you've even had the first official conversation. And this is a classic emotional blunder. You get a new offer, you're excited or relieved, and you just have to tell a work friend. But that one chat can set off a chain reaction that puts your manager on the defensive and makes your whole exit feel like a fight. The general rule of thumb is that a strong one is, this is going to be a very strong rule of thumb. Your direct manager should be the very first person that you work with to know that you got another job or that you're leaving this one for whatever reason. I know that a lot of people under immense pressure, under a lot of stress, disappointment with raises or promotions, being overlooked, passed over, or overburdened with tasks, have that discussion on the work floor with their colleagues, considering withdrawing from the company. That declaration of low morale triggers management to seek your replacement before you even execute your own exit. And you have to understand when the company no longer has value in you, you have less leverage. If you are, for any way, shape, or form, leaving for some sort of civil injustice, if the company is aware, they can cover their tracks. However, you still have a injustice that is no longer being addressed. One, you didn't collect the evidence along the way. Most people don't. Most people don't record their conversations with their superiors. Most people don't document their engagements. Most people don't have that verbal conversation in person and then follow up with an email paper trail. If we had a talk over the phone, I take your word for it. But there's no paper trail that we had the discussion. Your word against mine is an unresolvable dispute. In the court of law, it is circumstantial at best, but it's also disregarded as hearsay. Unless your boss threatens your position from an unethical position and you have valid proof of that, there is the whatever they promised you that you didn't get in writing is not going to be supported. So you have to recognize that. The second critical error is speaking emotionally or inconsistently. Because when you finally have that talk, it's so easy to let frustration, guilt, or anger color your words. Venting about all your problems feel great in the moment, but it's a short-term release with long-term costs. Just as bad is telling different people different stories. One version for your boss, another for your team, and a third one for HR. That just breeds confusion and mistrust. The most professional exits are built on one consistent forward looking story. You need a single narrative that is calm, respectful, and focused on the future, not the past. How somebody did you dirty back in the day got nothing to do with where you're going and why you're going there today. I mean, unless, of course, there's an extreme injustice that has compromised your position in this employment, right? Now, the third mistake, doing that really bridge after you left, is failing to support the transition. The second you give notice, it's tempting to mentally check out. Your work quality slips, you're slow to respond, and you do the bare minimum. Fuck it, I'm out of here anyway. Who cares, right? Your team is going to be paying attention to this correctly, right? And they're going to take this as you leaving them behind and leaving them in a strong bind that they have to manage. A graceful exit demands the exact opposite. You become hyper focused on a smooth handover. Remember the last impression rule, equally as important as the first impression rule. But the last impression rule, people will remember how you left more vividly than the years of work that you put in before. So a sloppy exit can erase years of goodwill in just 2 weeks. So if you were planning on quitting your job, I know Stephen was telling me that he was going to make a transition from one place to another after a discussion about a pay scale. If you're planning on quitting your job, you're supposed to overperform now before you have that talk. So that when you have that talk, they're looking at how great things are right now and how you're willing to leave. And as we go through what you're going to be discussing and how you're going to be discussing it, you're going to stick to the narrative that you're leaving now. You don't necessarily have to give them a why, but if we cover why, you'll give them a why. And as you finalize your 2 weeks out, you give them the best performance that you can give on your way out if you have to proactively finish your shifts. Now, even if I don't get to it today, I have told you plenty of times before that it is always highly probable because a lot of people who are blue collar workers stack up on their vacation time, they stack up on their PTO time, they stack up on their sick days, not because they want to, but because we're workaholics. We typically go to work as often as possible because we need the money. We live on the job because we need the money. We are so used to going in on our days off that when we don't get called in on our days off, some people actually hover around the job, hanging out with our work friends, checking in with the company, especially on a shift that normally is understaffed that you would have to cover, and you would linger around that particular shift just in case something happened that would allow you to clock in and get you some extra hours in. So we don't pay attention to the probability, like Michael mentioned on the show a couple times before, you know, if you end up with either 2 days off in a row, or even if you have two separate days off out of the week, if you have a Monday off and you have a Thursday off, you have the capabilities of taking 3 days off Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, and ended up having a full paid week, but you have a 5 day week off and only use 3 of your vacation days. People don't plan that kind of stuff. And if you've got 2 weeks of vacation, that's 14 days. You could take 4 5 day vacations in the midst of any process and only use 12 of your 14 days, where you would effectively be showing up for work 2 days out of the week and getting paid for a full week. People don't plan that. People don't plan that. And ironically, the average person, if the average person was doing that once a month, because if you did it every week, they would likely replace you on a schedule permanently because they need people to work. But if you did it once a month, where you say, okay, well, they only got me off on like Mondays and Wednesdays, and you know they need you on the weekend. So you're likely going to work Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. If you wanted to take like a 4 day weekend, you're off on Monday and Wednesday, you could schedule vacation time on Sunday and Tuesday and take 4 days off in a row where two of those 4 days are paid days off. You still work the 3 days that they really need you. You still get a full week's worth of work, but you get 4 full days to rest. And if you did that once a month over the course of 4 months, you would have used 12 days of vacation time out of 14. That's And actually, with that situation, you would only be using two. So you would have actually, in that situation, only used 8 days out of 14. So if you would have did that once a week and only used one week out of the month, only used 2 out of 14 days, you could have did that 7 months in a row, where you're getting paid a full week's worth of work, and you're taking 4 days off out of the week once a month for seven months. People don't think about that. How you doing, Mr. Satellite? Special shout out. He said Thanksgiving has 2 days off, 3 days get ran that week, mandatory for me. You got some businesses that will do blackout dates for things like, well, they're starting to do more work life stuff now, so they're sometimes closing the whole company on holidays like Thanksgiving Day, but Thanksgiving Eve they might be open. Some fast food places might be open, especially if they're open like late night stuff like that. They might close during the day and open that afternoon, or they might be half a day and then close right before like 5 o'clock and shut things down. Where they he still wears my intro. Your intro's in here somewhere, buddy. Good to see you though. Shit, Steven needs an intro. He's a paid member in the membership. um, I still got your intro in here somewhere. I just didn't put it up because we got a lot of stuff to talk about today, and not a lot of time to cover it all. But no, they sometimes do blackout dates mandatory. You got to show up for work because they have high volume, especially if it's one of those restaurants where people take time off from their office job and come to your job and actually utilize your job as part of their holiday special. Those types of jobs, like a restaurant or something like that, might have blackout dates on certain holidays and then make it mandatory for you to come in on certain days. However, they don't project those blackout dates until the month or the week of the holiday. So they don't actually come up and say, hey, in January, they say, hey, you can't take off on July 4th, or you can't take off on whatever, whatever. They give you in their company policies your requirement to give more than 2 weeks advance notice. And if you give them 3 months or 6 months or 9 months advance notice, if you tell them in January you're not coming in for Thanksgiving, or if you tell them in January that you're not coming in for Christmas of this coming year, a lot of the times they forget. But if you put in a written notice that certain things are happening on this week, uh, and you get them to acknowledge that in writing with a return email, or signing your document that indicates that they approved your ability to take off for such and such day. Because what companies do that we ignore is that companies have request book. You have to ask for permission to not go to work. Fuck yeah, bullshit. But and then they make it your responsibility to cover your own shit. So they just make the schedule fuck you over, and then they make it your duty, which is their job. They make it your duty to replace yourself so that they don't have to. And if the other person doesn't show up, they make it your responsibility to cover your own shit, which that's not supposed to happen. But that's the chore that they put on a lot of people in certain companies to um get time off, entitlement time off, right? Fucked up. But here's the thing: we do it. We do it. What we do is we got to beg somebody to cover our shift. Then we have to trade shifts with them. So sometimes, like if you work a 12-hour shift, you might have to work two 12-hour shifts back to back so that you can get one 12-hour shift off. So you have 24 hours off. But if you're spending 12 of those hours sleeping, it's like not even getting a day off, right? It's crazy. We don't think about that to schedule our PTO time. But now that, me and Michael have been mentioning it over the last few weeks, that seems like one of the most effective ways to get things in. And especially if you was able to get that relaxation, almost a mini vacation, 4 days off in a row, once a month. And if you're one of those people that works 3 days on, 4 days off anyway, if you were able to get a whole week off once a month, where you could do that 4 days on and 1 day off, and then have 2 extra days off, where you're only using two of your PTO day or two of your vacation days at a time. Some jobs give you mandatory 2 weeks off where you got to take a full 2 weeks, right? You got to, or turn it into a paycheck. It happens at a fixed time. You either use it or get the check. A lot of people need the check. Y'all got to understand. If you're going to work, if you're going to work on your way out, one of the reasons why I was talking about that is, you have to work better on your way out after you've given them your 2 week notice than what you was working when you plan on being there long term. You have to make sure that you're wrapping up all the information and providing it to other people who can take over any active clients you have, any active accounts, any projects that you were working on. You're not trying to make it harder for the job to function after you leave. You want to make it easier for them to, when you leave, so that they can remember how good you were on your way out. But if, like we discussed before, you have the capabilities to say, well, I want to put in a notice of leave. This is something you tell yourself, not the person next to you. You decide that you're going to go on all the leave that you're going to go on, ask for all the benefits that you're going to ask for, cash out on any um, assets that are being held up in the company, stock that you own, anything that's been vetted. You want to cash out on everything that you have, withdraw all the benefits that you have, and then while you're on your 3 week or 5 week vacation with your 2 weeks off, your 7 days of PTO time, and then your 3 6 days, while you're using all of this stuff to have an extended vacation somewhere along the lines, you slide them a 2 week notice while you're already out, so that they know that after your last day of paid time off, you're not coming back to work. That's probably one of the best ways to leave the company, where you don't have to perform and you get paid to leave. Even if you're in a situation where somebody filed a complaint, you're under investigation, nobody right now. They have a lot of companies that happens where somebody says something slick to the boss, and now the boss is considering your employment. And you could have been like, man, cash me out. Cash me out just based off of the false claim. Just cash me out. And like all of your paid time in it, because since you're not at the job, right? They're not looking you in the face. You're not interacting with the complainant. You don't have to. They don't have to worry about you retaliating on the complainant, because you're requesting all this time off. If you schedule it correctly, by the time they come to a decision, you already quit. They don't even have to make a decision, even in those situations. Now, while it's unfair for somebody to make a false claim against you, it is also um, not beneficial to you to fight against certain false claims, because when you have multiple people working together to get you fired, which does happen in a lot of places, if you don't have the proper information to defend yourself, that's not true isn't enough. Two people saying the same thing is substantial evidence, even if it's not true, which ultimately puts you in a highly complicated position that they are supposed to uh, uh, do something about, but they don't. And you just got to leave the company, because I mean your reputation is going to be more important than you being right. If they document, especially here in 2026, if they document any negative information about you in their employee files upon termination, if your new employer finds your previous employer and asks them why you were let go, regardless of what you said, your previous employer can roll out a scroll of coworker complaints. and be like, that's the reason why we fired him. And if those coworker complaints are very negative, harassment of any kind, biased statements of any kind, it could compromise permanently, blacklist you from being able to get a new job anywhere else. So you want to make sure that on your way out, you want to make sure throughout the duration of your stay that you are not rubbing elbows the wrong way, accidentally or intentionally, to the best of your ability. These three mistakes are going to be the root of almost every burned bridge. The good news is, with a clear strategy, you can sidestep every single one of these. The most important work of a successful exit happens before you breathe a word to anyone at your company. Now, this is going to be step zero, the step that happens before step one. It's a private prep phase. This is going to be where you lay the foundation for a calm, controlled, and confident negotiation. Rushing this step is like walking into a big meeting without reading the notes. You're just setting yourself up to fail. First, you get crystal clear on why you're leaving, right? Because, like I said before, sometimes you could be leaving just because you're leaving. And sometimes you have a legitimately detailed reason as to why you're leaving. Is it a better opportunity, a career change, a personal reason, or burnout? But write this down for yourself, right? And you have to be honest with yourself. Then you want to figure out if the reason that you're leaving is a temporary problem or a structural problem. Could this be fixed with a raise or a role change? Or is it a fundamental mismatch? This clarity is vital because you're going to be tested. Your manager might hit you with a counteroffer if they really don't want you to leave. And if you haven't solidified your why to yourself, you could get talked into a temporary fix for a permanent problem where they offer you extra money to convince you to not leave when you really don't want to be here because you don't like the way you're being treated. But they're going to pay you more money for you to put up with the bullshit. And you're only going to be in this position for about 6 months before you're back job hunting again because you really don't want to be here. Second, you have to do a thorough review of your finances and any contracts that you have with the company. I know that when we sign on, we just sign a bunch of papers for the onboarding process. We don't really read many of them, and we typically walk away from the job without reading anything either. When you start contemplating that you don't like this job, you should be reading up on the bylaws, on the employee handbook, on all of the terms and conditions, on all of the documented benefits that you are entitled to versus the benefits that you have earned, and compare your work ethic to any benefits that you're entitled to and anything that you're supposed to receive. Before you even think about giving notice, you want to check the financial cushion. How much runway do you have? Even after you've cashed out on any benefits that you have with the company. Having a solid safety net is going to be your ultimate source of leverage because if you leave the job, it lets you negotiate from a position of strength, not a position of desperation. Because if you need money, they can compromise your integrity by offering you the money that you need. Again, if you need money, you might take less money from the new employer than you deserve. So it's not just the person that you're um, quitting from, because if you don't want to be here, but they'll pay you more money to stay, they'll offer you a little bit of money in desperation, and you'll accept that because anything is better than nothing when you need more. But if you've got enough, this isn't worth my time. This isn't worth my effort. This isn't worth my value. You can clearly turn down a bad deal and find something better somewhere else. Even if you found a better employer where it's a new environment, likely to have better treatment, where one of the reasons why you're leaving is you do not like the environment that you are involved in, whether it's the lack of work ethic around you, whether it's the lack of organization and the structure that you're in, whether it's the lack of accountability of the people around you that leads you to levels of frustration that is unresolvable because it is not your direct failure, it's the failure of the people around you. These things lead you to a highly compromised position where you have clear concerns that are not going to be addressed with a pay raise. You go to another company, they're offering you a better deal. Even if your current job price matches that deal, it's not about the money. It's about the way I'm being treated on the job. And you can't fix that. Even if you promoted me, if you have me working over the people I had a problem with, the resentment is still going to be there. See what I'm saying? If you promoted me and moved me to a different department in a different location where I'm in nowhere near contact with the people I have an issue with on a job or the way that they perform, that might be a benefit, which is why you have to really determine the why, right? Next, and this is going to be crucial, locate and read every document that you've signed with the company because I mean, a lot of times we sign stuff without reading. Now you need to read everything that's got your signature on it. This means everything. Your employment contract, any non-compete or non-solicitation agreements, because a lot of jobs give you that. Really, bro? Every everybody, you gonna do it again? He's sneezing. God bless you. Goes on foot. Oh Lord, now he gonna come and climb onto the show. He gonna make his way over here to the show. He made all that noise. He gonna come over here and get onto the show. Um, you want to look at your no solicitation agreements and then the paperwork on stock options or any bonuses that you might be entitled to. Right? He said, "Better let you go if you're not happy working here." Well, if you are quitting your job and you articulating that you're not happy before you quit your job, your boss might just work you off the schedule because they know that you're unreliable. If you are negotiating a leave where they value you as a person, but they don't treat you valuable, you're not happy on the job. If you got this job because it's something your mama made you do, or if you got this job because you're trying to impress your father, or you got this job just to make your wife shut up, and you don't really want to do this job, you do the job very well. The job really appreciates you, but you really hate this job. You're just doing it because you are being forced to do it by an external source. These are situations where they could offer you enough money to shut the fuck up and take your ass back to work. And a lot of times, if you really need the money, you'll go back to work because the only complaint is not the job, it's not the people, it's the fact I didn't want to do this in the first place. So when you say, well, it's better to let you go if you're not happy working here, that's not always the case. You have to really understand why are you not happy working here? Because I could not be happy working here because you forced me to do this. You as a family or friend forced me to come to this job, right? I could not be happy with the job because of my coworkers. Their underperformance puts immense pressure on me to perform. I could not like this job because of the management passing their responsibilities on to me without me receiving the adequate pay. I could not like the job because of the customer service position that I have, where customers are very disrespectful to the employees. There's a lot of reasons why you don't like the job, but some of the reasons why, and this answers your question, you say, then why stay? Some of the reasons why you don't like the job can be rectified if I am in a position where the employees that I'm working with are underperforming. And the only reason why I'm leaving is because I have an immense pressure of a higher workload. Then the company can, in some situations, relocate me to a position where people outperform me. I'm an overachiever. Put me on a shift with a bunch of overachievers. And especially if we're on a shift where the overachievers get bonuses for overachieving, I can get a pay raise for production and be on a shift full of people that perform. And it be a breath of fresh air that changes the way I feel about the job. If I'm in a position where management is putting a workload on me, upper management might recognize the fact that I've been doing the job of the person to be replaced, and they might replace me with that guy where that guy or that girl gets fired, and now I'm the manager that I was doing the work for. That solves the problem, because if I was doing the work of the manager without the pay of the manager, and that was my complaint, making me the manager that I'm working for actually resolves my issue. Now, under situations where I was forced to go to work because they wanted me to have a job and I really didn't want to have that job, the company can't do anything about that. That's a personal gripe that you just got to deal with your therapist. And at the end of the day, that's one of those moments where you say, well, yeah, if you're not happy, just find another job. But a lot of the times, people stay on jobs that they get jobs that they don't like because it is the easiest job to qualify for because of the money that they need to sustain their standard of living. And while they hate that job, they love the money they're making from that job because it provides them with mental relief from the financial stress that they have at home. Now, why stay on the job if you don't like it? Because you can't afford to work somewhere else. Because based on your skill set, this is what you qualify for. But based on your personal desire, you'll wish you were doing something else. That would be why you stay on the job. You see, if you're unhappy, it rubs out onto other employees. Yes, as heavy levels of resentment. And most people don't know how to shut the fuck up. So what'll happen is that a lot of the times people will troll social media and exploit a lot of their resentment on social media. And that's modern times. But back in the day, and a lot of the times today, in reality, a lot of people gripe about the job while they're on the clock. The boss might not be around. One of their friends that are friend coworkers will be bitching about the boss or bitching about one of the other coworkers. And a lot of the times that conversation can be just between the two of them. But a lot of the times that conversation through the grapevine gets back to somebody else. Hey, so and so's been bitching about the job. They don't seem happy about the job. And just like you said earlier, yeah, that could get you worked right on out of the schedule. You gotta know why you're leaving, and if why you're leaving can be fixed so that you can stay. If it is an irreversible or unreconcilable situation, then you must leave. But if it can, in fact, be resolved, then it needs to be resolved. Now, after you've gone over stock options and other bonuses that you might be entitled to, you have to understand your obligations. What's your required notice period? Because a lot of times 2 weeks is the standard norm, but some require you to give written 30-day or something to that effect. If you have certain projects that's going on, some require you to finish certain performances and notify them before taking on new projects so that you're not starting up something and then walking out the door 2 weeks after you're handed a new project. You have to look at the details, right? What are the exact terms of your no compete clause? Because a lot of companies give you that no compete clause, but truthfully, depending on what industry you work for, a no compete clause could be something to the magnitude of not taking trade secrets and bringing it to somebody else. And if you're not bringing trade secrets to somebody else, it's like if you work in a burger joint, there's only some you don't know how the damn meat is made, so you're not bringing trade secrets. But if you're working for a tech company, the coding that you use in that company, you can't use anywhere else. Even if you made the algorithm, it is that company's intellectual property. So you can't take your personal algorithm and bring it to another company. Even if you made the algorithm and the company doesn't know about the algorithm and you were using that algorithm to benefit that company, because that algorithm is in their software, it would be considered their intellectual property because you created it on the clock. You got paid by them by the hour. You used it for their company. You can't take your algorithm and go anywhere with it because it's yours since you made it, but it's theirs because you use it on their dollar, right? So you got to be careful about that. Then you have to ask, are there bonus clawbacks? The legal landscape around non-competes is always going to shift, with many states restricting the use. And that's going to be because the no compete clause might ask you or demand that you not get a job with the competitor simply because it's the competitor. So if you work at a Burger King, you can't get a job at a McDonald's. If you work at a McDonald's, you can't get a job at a Wendy's. Not because you know the secret recipe to the secret sauce, but because you know how to make a fucking sandwich. And that makes no damn sense, right? But the enforceability really depends on your state's laws and the specifics of what you signed. So you have to really look at the contract and see what you signed. Ignoring these details can lead to nasty surprises like forfeited money or even legal threats. And forfeited money could be money that you're entitled to have, but because you're working for the competitor, they took that money back from you. If you're working for the competitor and they know that you're working for the competitor, like if you leave a law firm and go work with the competitor and they find out that you're representing the competitor, you could potentially have, if you have trade secrets that you've adapted to your work skills and you're using those trade secrets in another company, you could have people do a cease and desist and legal action for that particular type of behavior. Because if you're a good employee, you'll get pay raises annually. And if your management sees abilities in you, you will get promoted. That is not true. If you are a good employee, you're highly likely to receive paid raises annually, but some companies have standardized paid raises based on years of service, not actual performance. You have some managers that will give you um, I would have to identify them as in the battlefield raises and promotions, where they're giving you a raise to keep you in the middle of the chaos. They will promote you in the field to replace a manager that was fired during a rush. You didn't have to necessarily earn the job. You are capable of performing the job, and they don't have anybody else to do the job, so they gave it to you, right? This is one of those situations where the general manager got escorted off of the premises in handcuffs because of a personal issue that has nothing to do with the job. They don't have another general manager that can take over. They give you the keys to the store. That's you just became the acting general manager until they can figure out what they're going to do next. It might take them a few weeks to a couple of months to put in somebody else, but the fact is that that doesn't always mean that you're good at what you do, that you're going to get annual raises. You have certain jobs that only pay you a few cents above minimum wage. They might have gave you a $5 raise one time before, and they're not going to give you another raise until minimum wage catches up with your raises. And you're doing an excellent job for 3, 5, 7 years, but they're not going to give you another raise, right? So they can see abilities in you. You're not going to get promoted. You could get passed over for a promotion because your boss favors somebody else on a personal level. Right? I'm gonna give my homeboys a promotion before I give these other people promotions based on their skill set. Right? So that's not always the case. Uh, a special shout out to, oh my God, Mr. 58. Yo, what's going on? Because I can only speak from my own experiences in life. Well, Michael, you're thinking about, because you're in your 70s. When you were 20, that was about 50 something years ago. And 50 something years ago, yes, you are correct. They were giving you merit. They were giving you raises based on your work ethic. They were giving you promotions based on your work ethic. But 50 something years ago, Michael, they would give you a pension. If you work for the company for 20 years, you'd get a gold watch. You would get a big ass paycheck. You would be getting paid to stay at home. They would have a whole goodbye party for you. If you survive 20 years on any job, they would give you a retirement scenario where you could quit the job with honors like retiring out of the military and be respected as a veteran in the field. If you postponed your retirement where you worked on a job for 30 or 40 years instead of leaving after that first 20, they might give you an even better watch and a gold pin and a bigger severance package so that when you leave, because you were the best of the best for the last 4 decades, right? Sage wisdom. Employers had so much respect for their employees 50 years ago. Today, you see how the little girls over here dropping it like it's hot in damn graduation, doing stripper moves on stage for graduation. These folks don't have respect for themselves, much less respect for anybody else. So if a person with managerial authority got a friend of theirs that work up under them, they might promote that person over you just because they know that guy. You might have a store manager that hired their best friend's kid. That kid might get promoted over you because they're related to the person that they're promoting, or they're promoting the person that they're friends with. They're related to the person that they're friends with. So you could be an excellent worker and you could get over for reasons. It doesn't always happen, but because it does happen, it today in 2026, the situation has gotten so dirty and so corrupt that it's not likely uh uh gonna work out that way where you could be the best employee in the world and there could be situations where they don't show you any reciprocation on that. It says no raises, no work, but you cannot lower your work ethic because they're not giving you the capital that you expect to get. That will qualify you for termination for lack of performance. That resentment is supposed to be discussed with upper management or human resources about why you're not getting compensated what you believe you should be compensated on. But it should not be a complaint. Oh, I feel like I deserve X, Y, and Z. Why aren't you giving me this? It should come from a position of I would like to rediscuss the terms and conditions of my employment. I would like to articulate my value in the company so that you can recognize and pay attention to at this current point in time exactly how much I benefit the company. And then based on the current market averages, this is what people in my position normally would get paid, which is far more than what I'm currently getting paid. And I'm asking for a pay increase of X, Y, and Z magnitude with X, Y, and Z benefits outside of capital gains to show support towards the company's value and my ability to perform, which is completely different. And why the fuck you didn't give me a full raise? Why you only gave me a half raise? Fuck this job. I'm out. That's a completely different addressal. Steven said, hard work is rewarded with more hard work. You ain't lying about that. Uh, and the bi-yearly 3 slice pizza and warm Pepsi. Look, he said bi-weekly 3 slices of pizza. They don't always give you 3 slices of pizza. Sometimes if you work in a fast food restaurant, they do meal exchanges. So you might get like 5 wings and a bottle of water. You might get 2 cheeseburgers and a fry with no drink. But your hard work is that what they do is instinctively they give you more work because you're willing to do more work. And one of the reasons why it is done instinctively is because the manager has a responsibility to delegate the work to a magnitude where the work gets done. Either the manager has to do the work or the manager has to put the workload on individuals that will accomplish the goal. A manager that can count on you to get the work done will continue to add you more stuff until you can't get the work done anymore. If you're able to do the job of 10 people before they bring it to somebody else who isn't done with the last task, they'll bring it to you because you've done the last 7 tasks that you brought them and you still have nothing to do. Now, some employees get frustrated. Oh, well, why are you giving me so much work? Because you're finishing your current task too fast. Instead of pacing yourself, you're burning through the task as if you're getting paid by the assignment when you're actually being paid by the hour. If you overwork yourself by functioning as a paid by the assignment employee, they will give you plenty of assignments and make plenty of money off of you, but not give you a raise for the performance increase. Even if you cause the entire floor to have an increase of performance, they're not necessarily going to give you a raise. They're actually just going to make everybody perform to the speed that you're currently performing. If you're supposed to accomplish like 20 clients an hour, you're accomplishing 100 clients an hour. You've been accomplishing 100 clients an hour for the last year. They're going to up the base floor and say everybody needs to perform 100 clients a year because 100 clients an hour because you've been doing it, right? You've been doing it for the last year. So instead of them giving you a raise, they might make that the standard norm. So they're not always going to show you the value that you need. Yeah, that happens all the time. Best advice, you'll figure it out. No, I got better advice than that, Michael. Oh yeah, the bi-yearly 3 slices of pizza. Yeah, bi-yearly. Yeah, I seen that. I seen it. Now, this prep phase that you're gonna have where you're doing this by yourself, where you're taking it into yourself and determining your value, this is about arming yourself with information. Knowledge is power. By clarifying your reasons, auditing your finances, and understanding your legal constraints, you turn quitting from an emotional reaction to whatever the fuck happened on the job, because it could have been something somebody said to you on a job. It could have been something somebody did to you on a job. It could have been something you didn't believe that you were supposed to experience on a job, or something that you believe that you were entitled to on a job that you didn't get. Whether you feel like you got passed over on a promotion that you deserve when you don't qualify for that because certain situations in your personal life prevent you from getting that position. And a lot of people don't know what I'm talking about. Let's think, for example, you're really good at managing the team, right? You're really good at delegating the instructions. You're really good at being supportive. You're really good at filling in the blanks with the weakest links on the floor. You are allowed to be a team leader, but you might have a couple of dine and dash citations from when you were kids playing with your friends. You might have a couple of probation things where you and your homies might have stole a bike or some stuff, or joyride in somebody's car or something like that. And these transactions on your criminal background record actually interfere with your ability to be promoted to a position where you're required to handle the company's money, because the higher ups believe that you might actually fall back into bad patterns of behavior. You don't understand why you're not getting promoted because you can do this job and you do it well, but your past is preventing your future from being that managerial position. You're pissed off at the company and you don't know why you're getting passed over, and they're not going to tell you you fucked up in your past. That's why we're not hiring you. They should, but they don't. They tell you we'll see. They'll tell you we'll get back to you. They'll make it seem like, well, I got to talk to district. District's got to talk to regional. Regional's got to talk to area. District, regional, and your current store manager will be in your store at the same time, having a massive meeting of great importance. And when you try to walk into that meeting when all 3 or 4 people are there, you might have them dismiss you and say, hey, let's finish. We'll talk to you as soon as we finish this meeting. And then while you're on the floor taking care of customers, they'll sneak out the back door. As soon as you go to take a break to go talk to them, everybody left. They never give you a response. It leaves you resentful. It leaves you highly pissed off. But the reason why they're not giving you the raise is because your background doesn't qualify for it. Your skill set does, but your background doesn't qualify for it. Let's take another scenario. Let's take another scenario. You're working in a company that handles a lot of money, but you've got a bunch of credit card debt. Your credit score is a 400. You got a lot of charge offs. You can't manage your own personal life. That's why you got this job, so that you can get your finances together. One of the criteria of this particular position in the job that you're working for might be that you show that you can manage large quantities of money. Well, if they do a credit check and you can't manage your own personal finances, how the fuck can you manage this business's finances? You don't qualify for the position. You do it well. Your skill set would handle that title, but your financial history shows that you can't do it because you can't balance your own fucking life, right? The boss isn't going to say, oh, your credit score sucks, so I can't give you a promotion, right? But really, the fact is that your credit score sucks, so they can't give you the promotion. You're financially challenged, and that makes you high risk where you might steal money out of the safe to pay your debts. So they're not going to give you the promotion. They're not going to tell you that. and you don't understand why you're not getting that promotion. So it's not a situation where you'll figure it out. A lot of the times your resentment is going to be the fact that you've reached a glass ceiling where you don't know why you can't go up any further, but you can't go up any further. And now you have to make one of two choices: make peace with where you at right now, or move to another place that allows you to move up. But you have to determine if you can move up. Is there something in your past that disqualifies you from going any further? Because if you quit this job and go work for another job and they have the same criteria, you're still not going to qualify for moving up. Yeah, they might pay you 50 cents more than what this job is paying you, but you're still not going to get that higher position. I had a client that I was working with. Real quick, guy isn't a social person. He's working on a job that's based on networking. He needs a managerial position in order for him to get his citizenship. He does not network with the bosses over the bosses that hire him. He has a time limit on his job where if he doesn't get promoted within a certain period of time, that he automatically gets fired. And the only secondary option to getting fired is being railroaded into a back office position that has no benefits. He needs the front office position to maintain his citizenship. But he waits until 3 months before his final review to start trying to figure out how he can get himself into the position of a manager. If you don't figure out what you need to succeed and start proactively putting forth the effort to get there, your time is going to run out and then you're going to get passed over. Dude's pissed off because his review likely not going to go the way he wants it to go. He's likely going to fall into that back office job. He's likely not going to like that back office job. He's likely going to have to start over his citizenship documentation because he's in a different role than what's on his visa. And that's going to delay his ability to get citizenship for 1 to 5 years. But he wasted 5 years because he didn't want that leadership position when that leadership position was the catalyst to his success in his visa. So I can hate that leadership position, but that's what the hell I'm going to get because that's what I need to be successful. That's why I got to tell. It's one of those things that people got to think about. Now, by clarifying your reasons, auditing your finances, and understanding your legal constraints, you're going to be able to uh, turn quitting from an emotional reaction into a strategic move. You're going to walk into the conversation with your manager, not with anxiety, but with a clear head and a firm grasp of your position. And this is the unseen work that makes a graceful exit possible. One of the other things that you're going to benefit from this is that you should be able to practice articulating your concerns. You can't write a whole script as to what you're going to say and how you're going to say it or whatever the case may be, but you can evaluate certain concerns that you have that should be projected. And these concerns are not being properly articulated if you don't prepare for them. Just like with a public speaking class, you organize your outline of some of the things that you're supposed to talk about during the time limit that you have. Because even when you're talking about getting fired or quitting, you don't have all day. They might give you 30 minutes. They might give you an hour. They might give you 15 to 20 minutes if they don't want to hear it. During the time limit that they give you to articulate your concerns, unless you're drafting all of this stuff on a long winded email, where they're not required to read everything you have to say, they can skim through it and see I'm resigning or withdrawing from the company and ignore everything you said and say, okay, you're fired. So you have to keep them involved in your discussion when you're talking to them by continuously touching on points that matter to them, right? So once your private prep is done, it's time to shift from defense to offense. You need to define what a successful exit actually looks like. If you don't define your win in advance, you'll be forced to take whatever you're given. Quitting isn't just leaving, it's a negotiation over time, over money, over your reputation. Your strategy needs clear goals for all three of these. So let's break them down. You want to grab a piece of paper, write down your goals for the exit. This is going to be your personal exit brief. First things first, your reputation. This is king. And this is going to be the most valuable long term asset that you can sustain on your way out of the company. Because if you're leaving for bad reputational reasons, you want to make sure that this is suppressed on your way out. And like I said before, if you have complaints from your colleagues, and that's grounds for employers to determine an investigation of your removal of the company, instead of allowing that to resolve itself, reputational preservation, you may offer to resign without them having to investigate, which prevents them from that employee complaints of any kind is the grounds for your removal. Because typically with what happens with these complaints is one or two favorite people to the boss goes and tells the boss you said or did something that you're not supposed to do, and that triggers a mandatory investigation. During that mandatory investigation, you are not allowed to work in the company. They will contact you and inform you that you can't come to work while they're investigating X, Y, and Z, A, B, and C. You can wait that out. You can gather your evidence. You can try to prove that what was said about you was false. You're going to always hold resentment towards your coworkers for what they said about you, whether it's true or not. You're going to hold resentment towards your employer for taking action against you, especially if what was said wasn't true. And everybody's going to look at you differently. So your relationship with your company has been compromised as soon as they ask you to take time off because of an employee complaint about you. Now, reputation preservation, they ask you to take a few days off. You've got a couple of days already scheduled off. You might decide, like I said earlier, to trigger certain vacation times, certain sick days, certain PTO times, and max all of that stuff out while they're doing their investigation. You're just going to use all of your benefits right now so that you've got plenty of time for them to work on whatever it is that they're going to work on. And then as soon as they trigger all of your benefits. You can notify them in that moment. You don't even have to finish your investigation. By the time my paid time off is up, I will just no longer come back to the company. You can provide that to them in writing that you're resigning for personal reasons, and you set your resignation date for the day after your last paid time off that's already been scheduled. If there's a complaint about you and they have to build evidence to fire you and you're willing to quit, they're likely to communicate and negotiate with you how to use what you're entitled to because you haven't gotten fired yet. So your benefits are still usable. And if you're willing to gracefully remove yourself based on the circumstances, just like a president that offers to resign instead of being impeached, just like a governor that steps down without being proven guilty for any type of illegal activities, if you volunteer to quit because something negative was said about you, where they don't have to investigate and prove what happened, they're likely to cooperate with your ability to voluntarily remove yourself from the position and then not talk about the fact that you left and why you left. But if you allow them to finish what they started, they will have clear and convincing evidence as to why you left. And that can transfer on from company to company, especially in modern 2026, because everybody's employment is digital now and everybody's work file is digital now. And human resources in one company can easily release an employee work file to another employee. There are some confidentialities about the certain situations, but your performance is your performance. That's not confidential. If you were disrespectful, if you were hostile, if you were confrontational, like that could be transferred over. If you stole from the company, that could be transferred over to another company, right? So with your reputation, what do you want your manager, your team, and your network to say about you after you're gone? Your main goal here is to protect and even enhance your professional reputation. I was working on a job one time. The motherfuckers called me goddamn Batman. They were like, this motherfucker is the Bruce Wayne of the company because I don't know where the hell he comes from, but this some bitch swoop in right when the shit hits the fan, fixes all the problems, and dips out. No lie. I was the one. And this is because, like I told you guys before, my mama raised a slave, but she raised me. So I worked on certain jobs, manual labor, blue collar jobs, where your effort was everything, right? It didn't always come with bonuses, but it came with certain unspoken privileges. I could make my own schedule. Now, a lot of people figure, oh, that's nothing. Oh, that's everything. Because I can be the spinal cord of the company and still come to work whenever I feel like it. Because if my schedule says volume on every day of the week, like and I mean volume, literally, there's a V on the calendar, not a start and a stop time, just a V. I know when volume is. The only people who know when volume is the people who are watching the market for the company. I'll show up an hour before it gets busy. Clock in 30 minutes before it gets busy. Before somebody complains about me being on a clock, it's busy. They don't have enough people to support the business, and I'm pushing them through the business and keeping their speed of service down. Then, when the business resolves itself before cleanup time, time for me to go. It's no longer busy. There's more than enough people here to handle this. I'm the first person that can go. I might have been there for 4 to 6 hours. I'm out the door. Volume, right? Now, a lot of people like, fuck that. I want my full 8 to 12 hours. Hold on now. If I did volume in the morning and I still work night shift, I had a 6 hour morning and an 8 hour night shift. I just did 12 hours. Well, actually, I did 14 hours. And if you consider paid breaks that were supposed to be in there, almost 16 hours, right? Volume. Because I am the skeleton crew, but I came in and worked half a shift for the morning crew, right? I'm able to lock in guaranteed 3 days a week or 4 days a week, cover my 40 to 60 hours, and have the rest of the week off. Or if I really wanted to make a bunch of overtime, work the rest of the week because payroll might have started on Wednesday and I'm already at 72 hours by Friday, literally. Or in some situations, I'm at 72 hours by Saturday, but I still got Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday that I got to work. I'm scheduled to be there, right? So you got to understand, what is your reputation with your company? So this means being seen as professional, organized, and very supportive. A key sub goal is to lock in the positive references from your previous employer, especially if you can get those references in writing before you leave, regardless of how they feel about you after you leave. You can take those written referrals of positive statements from your previous employers and include them in your application with your resume, and they don't even have to contact the previous employer because they have a letterhead from your company with your employer's name on it that says, hey, this person's a good person. It's almost like, Stephen, when you were doing those scholarships, and some of those scholarships asked you to provide referrals where you have to get like the dean or a good teacher or a community service worker or somebody like that to say something positive about you in order for you to get that grant or that scholarship. Those referrals where you're doing good deeds for people, you're helping somebody out, you're doing an internship, your teacher's aide, you're helping out your teacher, whatever the case may be. Hey, I was thinking about doing X, Y, and Z. Can you give me like a good, like generic referral, like speak highly about me? And they write that referral. If that referral isn't a a niche referral where it's tuned directly to a specific grant or scholarship, you can recycle that referral. Oh, Steven's a very hard worker. He's very dedicated. He's very motivated. He comes in early. He stays late. He's very meticulous about his organizational skills. He's very detailed about his notes. This, that, and third. Traits about you that is universal for everything that you ask for. Then you can take that one and go to all of your applications. But if you have one referral that's like, oh, he would be really good for your undergraduate research development summer program, that referral can only be used for exactly that. But if you get a standard referral that's based on generic skill sets that you have that are universal to everything that you ask for, these referrals can be recycled. And if the referrals are within the last 6 months, you could last 6 to 12 months, you can utilize multiple referrals from multiple individuals and just copy and paste them to all of the applications that you fill out within the last 12 months. Is that the value of those investments already increased in one day? That's what I freaking told you. That's exactly what I told you yesterday. I was like, man, you missing out, bro. You if you freaking wait for that car to get paid up, you gonna miss out on an opportunity. I told you yesterday. I said, shit, you better get your ass in there and get it in there while you still can. He said MicroStrategy incorporated up almost 4% in a day. And I told you that I gave, and I've been following each one of them. Don't forget, we had the stock party that had started, I think, yesterday. You should have, if you didn't grab it already, grab your stock party. But that's one of the reasons why I was telling you about it yesterday. That's why I've been preaching to you about it over the last month to grab those stocks because soon as Donald Trump says the war is over, you think the stock is going up like now overnight. You can imagine what's going to happen at 9:30 in the morning when the stock markets open up from 9:30 Eastern Standard Time to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You're going to see leaps and bounds on the observation that conflict is over. Oil is going to start being shipped. Products are going to start being mass produced at a less expensive rate for the manufacturer, which means that products are going to start reaching the customers at a more expedited fashion, which means profits are going to start being made by big business. Employees are going to be able to start going back to work and getting more hours, right? Troops are going to start coming back home. Properties are going to start paying their rent on time because the residents are going to be coming back home, right? All of that stuff is going to start benefiting all of the stuff, all of the stocks that we were following. Gas prices might go down, but gas prices aren't going down until October because now is the time with hurricane season and summer travel with no conflict overseas. It's safer to travel to the Middle East, which means a lot of people can still now safely go to Asia without having the concern of being blown out of the sky by a stray missile. So you're going to start seeing more travel. You're going to start seeing more social involvement because they wrapped it up right after school's out. So any plans that would have happened 2 weeks after school's out, summer vacation, the war's over, people's traveling, you're not going to see much of an impact on the gas prices. Gas prices are going to start dramatically going down in October. There are going to be some changes in gas prices. It might go down like 45 cents over the next like couple days. It might go down 45 cents over the next week. But the inflated price that we would have naturally experienced for summer and hurricane season is going to offset the decrease in price due to the lack of conflict that just resolved itself. So we're going to see a lot of changes in the market, but we're going to see a lot of things stay the same for a short period of time. But now we're going to see the natural decline in the fall from not only the war being over, but summer being over too, and hurricane season being over as well. I I don't know. Some people don't pay attention to what I talk about when I be talking about it, and that's one of the reasons why this is one of the most undervalued podcasts um in YouTube because I called the market on a macro level and timed it on a macro level to the exact circumstances that actually rolled out. And anybody who takes my information, piggybacks it with their own research, and then takes action on that is not going to miss out on the wave that I said was coming. They're going to be at the top of the wave, riding the wave, not under the wave, being swallowed by it. They're not going to be on the back end of the wave trying to get what's left over, right? So I'm actually very excited about this. Now, another thing you're going to ask yourself, who are the people that you want in your corner for years to come after you leave the previous company? Your exit strategy has to keep those relationships strong. You want to think of it as the two-door test. Every move you make should keep the door open to this network and the door open in your next opportunity. Okay. The second thing you want to pay attention to is your money. This is going to be a concrete part of your negotiation. What are you entitled to? And what could you potentially negotiate? Your goals here need to be specific. You need to secure all owned compensation, all everything that they owe you, everything you're entitled to, including your last paycheck, any unused paid time off. I keep telling you about how to cash that in some way, shape, or form. You want to check your state and your company's policies about this, but before they officially take you off the payroll, you want to make sure that you utilize these things and any earned commissions or bonuses that you are entitled to before your termination date, where you could sometimes negotiate the delay of your termination date to receive, even though you're taken off the schedule, the day of your termination date could be pushed back to receive all of those bonuses that you're entitled to. Beyond that, is severance a possibility? You got to see that because severance in most companies is common in layoffs, but it is not unheard of to voluntarily uh, uh, resign, especially for seniors or long tenured roles where the company really wants a smooth transition. You're too old for this. Your physical condition can't support this shit anymore. You've got situations where you're in a highly stressful environment, not because of your colleagues, because that is the job, like a freaking police officer or a soldier or something to that effect, firefighter. And the mental stress requires you to retire because you no longer have the mental capacity to function on the job the way you need to, the way you would like to function on a job. You know how John Cena retired because he was one step slower than the next generation? You know, the fact is, you recognize that even though everyone wants you to stay, you can't stay. Voluntary resignations, right? It's often a long shot, but worth knowing if it is an option. Don't just think cash. Consider other elements like accelerating your stock vesting or getting help with Cobra health insurance premiums. Because a lot of the times, there's only so much money the company is going to give you. But if they're willing to pay for certain benefits on your behalf or allow for certain stock options to be vested to you before you are taking off a payroll, that's extra ways that you can get your benefits. Third, you want to recognize time. Time, as in like your free time, as in your personal time. This is about controlling your departure timeline to fit your needs while meeting your obligations. Your primary goal is to set a clear and mutually agreeable last day, right? 2 weeks notice is common courtesy, but this is in the United States. It's not a legal requirement unless your contract says so. So for senior roles, offering a longer transition can be a great gesture of goodwill, meaning that you really don't want to be here, but you might give them 3 months so that you can train your replacement. But everybody knows that you're retiring. You filled out the retirement like a CIA agent, like a federal agent. You could have been working on this job for 40 years as a senior officer, and you have filled out your retirement information. You've got your retirement date. You just finished the paperwork here in June, and they have decided that your last day on the job is September 15th. You know when your last day on the job is, but it's not for several months. During this time, you're going to train somebody else to do what you do the way you used to do what you do, if not better, right? This is a goodwill gesture, right? You also want to design or define your scope of work during the notice period because you're not there to start new massive projects if you're on your way out. Your goal should be to negotiate a clear list of transition priorities, making sure your final weeks are productive but contained, meaning you might be leading the team, delegating work. Even if new projects are assigned, they're assigned to somebody else where you can aid those people on certain projects, provide advice to those individuals on certain projects, but you will not at any point in time be responsible for those projects since you are leaving the company, right? It's like, it's my last day. I don't want to take on a new case, right? By putting these objectives in order in advance for your reputation, your money, and your timelines, you create a scorecard for your exit. It turns a vague, stressful event into a project with clear goals. And this framework lets you approach every conversation with purpose, ensuring that you walk away with your assets, both financially and reputationally, fully intact. Not a lot of people consider on their way out, especially less prestigious jobs. Now, a great exit negotiation isn't just about what you want, it's about understanding what everyone else needs. The key to not burning a bridge is a simple shift in mindset. You go from thinking, I'm leaving, to I'm here to help you manage this transition that I have created. This problem solving approach starts with mapping your stakeholders and figuring out what they care about. Your departure causes ripples, and each person it hits has different concerns. Your job is to anticipate them and get ahead of them. Let's look at some key players. First, your district manager. What's their biggest worry? Almost always, it's continuity. You leaving creates a hole, disrupts projects, and adds a hire for a replacement to their to do list. The risk for them is operational chaos. So, what they need from you is a plan for a smooth transition. They need to know projects won't be dropped and knowledge will be transferred. Your ability to reduce this risk for them is your best tool for keeping that relationship strong. I had a manager that I had worked for in one company, right? And again, I was the Batman of the company. Like I swooped in, I covered a shift, and I swooped back out. I was doing it so much that they called me a legendary employee specifically because they only found me in the midst of chaos and they could never figure out which store I would work in because I worked at 13 different stores in the company. And that actually put me in a position of working directly under the district manager, would actually put me in a store with a manager that was dealing with the conflict with the company, and that manager was on his way out. The reason why I talk about this is because not only did I come in and save the shift for this manager, I contributed to saving that manager's job on my way out. And then he left the company anyway, shortly thereafter. But when I left the company and went to a different company, guess who was the manager of the new company? The guy I worked for at the other company. Because I put in the effort to benefit him in his transition without even knowing it. In the future, he put in effort to transition me in to his new position, building bridges in places that I didn't know I needed bridges, right? Next, your colleagues and direct reports. Their world is getting shaken up along with your district managers. They might be worried about inheriting your work, losing a valuable teammate, or just the uncertainty of it all. They care about fairness and support. The risk for them is burnout and resentment. To head this off, you need to show your commitment to a clean handoff and be transparent with your manager's blessing about the transition plan. So you're only supposed to talk about what y'all agree on talking about. I'm going to help you guys with X, Y, and Z projects on my way out. We're going to get this done. That way, when I leave, you don't have anything to do. Whatever new information they put on you is going to be stuff that I have nothing to do with. But I'm going to help you clean up everything that was here while I was here. All right. That doesn't discuss what benefits I get on the way out, like how my bosses are treating me while I'm leaving. It's just talking to your colleagues and coworkers about what you're going to do for them on your way out so that they understand how this dynamic will affect them. Then there's going to be human resources because HR is all about process and liability. They want to make sure that your exit follows company policies and the labor laws, that you get your final paycheck correctly. They're not going to give you your final paycheck the day that you stop working. They're going to give it to you on the next available payday, which I have always objected to, but it costs way more money than it is legally worth for you to be able to go and fight for the fact that you did not get your termination pay on the termination date. You got it the payday after. So if you're on a job, excuse me, that pays every 2 weeks. You work 2 weeks, you get paid on the third week. If you work week one and stop working at the end of week one, you have a second work week and then the third week of pay, which means you don't get paid within 72 hours of termination. You get paid 2 weeks later on the scheduled payday. A lot of employers will do that because the time it takes for legal action to resolve the fact that they made you wait 2 extra weeks for your paycheck, the argument is, but he got paid, right? Now, with the right lawyer and the right quantity of money, you can argue the pay with interest, but the legal fees that you would be owing for a small claims litigation for the delay in your pay for 10 days might not be worth the hassle, which is why big business gets away with it. Negotiating your out, that's going to be very important. But their goal is going to be the company is protected from any legal claims if possible. The risk for them is a procedural mistake or a messy departure. Now, you can meet their needs by being organized, professional, and responsive to their paperwork requests. Finally, considering your clients or external partners, if you have any, depending on what job you work for. Their main concern is going to be stability. They have a relationship with you more than they have a relationship with the company. And your departure introduces a lot of high risks to their relationship with your company. They want to know that their needs will still be met by the company that you're no longer employed in. In coordination with your manager, your job is to help craft a message that reassures them and smoothly introduces them to their new points of contact in the company. You can't always quit and take your clients with you. That's part of the no competition clause. When you quit, you more often than not, you leave your clients with the company that you were employed at the time that you established those clients. Even if you started your own business from the ground up, part of your no competition clause is that you're not supposed to directly compete with your previous employer. You can't just work in a law firm and then start up your own firm in competition of your previous employer. Now, if you worked in a law firm in, say, slip and falls, and then you go into another field of, say, car accidents, not necessarily the same thing. You might work in the public defender's office and decide to go into private practice. Not the same, right? You might work as a paralegal for a prosecutor and then decide to go into criminal defense. Not the same, right? So you got to pay attention to these things. For each of the stakeholders, you want to ask yourself three questions. What does this person care about most right now? What risk does my leaving create for them? And what can I do to reduce that risk and support them? I know a lot of people feel like, fuck this shit, I'm out. But no, you got to realize that this is very important. The stakeholder map is the strategic foundation for every conversation that you're about to have. It lets you frame your departure not as a problem that you're causing, but as a challenge that you're helping everyone solve. With your prep work done and stakeholders mapped out, it's time for your story to get straight, right? The exit narrative is the consistent official reason that you'll give for leaving. It's a vital tool for controlling the conversation. You want to stop the gossip and frame your decision in the best possible light for both yourself and the company. A strong exit narrative follows four golden rules. It's going to be brief, it's going to be positive or at least neutral and future oriented. And it's also going to be honest without oversharing. If you have a brief, your reason for leaving shouldn't be very long and it shouldn't be a complicated story. It needs to be a concise statement. The more you say, the more you invite questions and debate. You want to think headlines, not essays. If it's going to be positive or neutral, no matter how you feel, the public narrative should never be negative. Avoid any language that sounds like you're criticizing the company or complaining. No backhanded compliments, no sly remarks, no zingers. Venting might feel good for a second, but it leaves behind a toxic impression that will follow you through your negotiation, through your exit, and a lot of times into your new employment, especially because these days everybody is interconnected. Your last employer might be social media buddies with your next employer. Your last employer might hashtag how much they did not like the way you behaved on the job. That social media post might be scanned by your new employer. They find you and they be like, "Oh, I already know about you. That's okay. We're not hiring." Right? The goal is to look like you're moving towards something better, not just running away from something bad. And when you're moving towards something better, it is not something better and more efficient like your current employment is not satisfactory. It is a self improvement, self development, self enhancing scenario that you chose to undertake that this employment is a pivot from, not less valuable, right? Now, future orient. Oh, and then there's another thing, real quick, that I want to talk about real quick. There's the understanding that a lot of the times you might have a situation where you could be leaving on bad terms. It's a peaceful departure, but it's still bad terms. A lot of the times, if you have an overshadowing injury or something to that effect that could mask the departure, instead of articulating bad blood between you and the employer, it could simply be, I have a clearly documented and recognized injury that requires me to take time off from work. I'm going to rest and recuperate recover and reevaluate my employment status, right? If I'm leaving because I'm hurt, if I'm leaving because I'm sick, when I get healthy, I might not come back to this company, but I'm not telling anybody that I'm leaving this company because I don't like the way I was talked to about the boss, or the boss might have recognized that I'm fucking up too much and I need to start over somewhere else because I've been making too many mistakes over here. Instead of these conversations being the discussion of my way out, it's like, nah, he's out on injury. He's on injured reserve. And you be on injured reserve so long that you just forget, people forget that you're even on the payroll, and you just start up somewhere new. That is a reputation preservation tactic. Is agree with your employer as to the terms and conditions of why you're leaving. Because on the surface, what you tell everybody is not what you guys agreed to behind the scenes. But if you agree to say, hey, I got an injury anyway. I'm not supposed to be working, but I've been working. We could just tell everybody that I'm hurt and I can't continue to work anymore. Nobody's going to care that I'm gone. Cool. If that's the story we're going to tell everybody, right? So the best narratives are going to be focusing on some of your next steps when you're leaving. You're going to visit some family, you're going to take care of some personal things, you might even be relocating. This frames your departure as a logical career move. It's about growth and new challenges, a motivation everyone understands and respects. It's hard for anyone to argue with that type of information. You found a better job with better qualifications and better benefits than this job, is saying that this job isn't treating its employees good enough. That's not the discussion you want to have. If you're dealing with a relocation issue because of personal reasons in your family, and you're going to be trying to find and this company does not have a position in that location, and you're trying to find another whatever in the area that you're going to, you're likely to be painting a narrative that I'm overcoming some challenges and some obstacles in my personal life, and relocation is necessary. And it possibly may compel me to receive a new employment. So nothing against this job. If I didn't have this going on in my personal life, this job would be where I would stay because this is a fantastic job. You're painting the narrative that there's no beef between us, but I have no other choice but to go, and other people will respect that. Honesty without oversharing is going to be one of the best things that you're going to have to deal with. He says that sounds too much like people pleasing to me. I tend to keep it all the all the way funky. Well, okay, so Stephen, all of the stuff that I'm talking about is in fact going to be areas of people pleasing. It is going to be one step away from kissing ass. And the reason being is because this is what we call um, the collateral damage control. Your goal is to preserve your reputation as a person. So we understand where you work at now. Remember, you wanted to work in a field with mental health. If your behavior in your current employment is received as negative and then transferred into the mental health field when you are trying to get started, it can become an obstacle for your ability to hit the ground running the way you want it to. And what will delay your ability to be successful is the quantity of people that are unwilling to work with you. Does that make sense? So the more people, because when you quit your last job, their ability to help you find another one, or at least not interfere with your ability to get another job, because you got to remember, every new employer wants to talk to your old employer about how well you worked. If your last employer is willing to agree to the fact that you did do certain levels of work, they didn't let you go because you were a bad worker. It doesn't matter why they let you go, but it wasn't because you were a bad worker. You were an excellent worker. They just didn't like your fucking attitude. They're not going to tell them the second part. They're going to tell them the first part. That allows you to move on to another job. But that only happens if you are mutual with your ability to not say nothing bad about your last job. If you go to your next job talking shit about your last job, that's like your new girlfriend talking shit about her ex-boyfriend. You're going to say that that's red flags. Most people are soured, whether it's a man or a woman doing it, they're soured about a person walking into a new relationship, complaining about their ex as if their ex is the only person that fucked up. But most people have nothing positive to say about their ex. They make it seem like their ex is the worst person in the world, which is bitterness and resentment, which makes you look bad. Because if this was the worst person in the world and you was with this person for an extended period of time, then aren't you the worst decision maker in the world? So in the breakup, if y'all are going to agree that it was a mutual separation, right? He was a great person. He was, he was kind. He was generous. He was this. It just didn't work out. We had different goals. We had different. We were in different places in our lives. One of us had to go out of state. We were in separate directions. With me being a night lifestyle and him being a day lifestyle. What we're saying is that it is not your fault that I left, or it wasn't my fault that you left. The circumstances didn't benefit us to stay together. So instead of me saying something negative about you to someone new, I am saying that we agreed that it did not benefit either one of us to maintain what we had. And I am moving forward to something that more benefits what I want, what I need, and what I'm capable of. So that isn't 100% people pleasing. That is ultimately articulating the ability to say, "Hey, yeah, I'm going to start working with you now, but I couldn't keep working with them because it no longer meshed well with my agendas. It did not mesh well with my lifestyle. It did not mesh well with my needs and my desires." But you have to articulate that in a fashion to where I am still reliable with the new employer. Because if it was all about just a random decision, that makes you an unstable employee. Because on a Friday, you could be like, fuck this job, Fridays, and just walk out on the shift. So you have to be able to articulate it as if it was a mandatorily, excessively necessary transition that was unable to be averted. But it was no bad blood against the company that you left from. Where most people hear that story and say, yeah, fair enough. I would have made that type of transition too under those circumstances. Like, for example, Jolin. Jolin is a roofer. He works in contracting. He broke his foot. He was out for 6 weeks. He was one of the managers of the company. Jolin could have had bad blood with the foreman. Instead of Jolin leaving that company and going to work for another company as, say, a painter or a driver, instead of claiming that the previous employer was shit, bad pay, no breaks, no benefits, blah, 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 which is what we would have did back in the early 90s. The new way of doing things is to say, he gave me everything that I was looking for, but I came under a condition that was no longer suitable for that particular type of employment because I got injured. I took X number of weeks off from work. After I fully recovered, I'm healed, I'm 100%, I'm not a medical liability, and now I can go back to work, but I want to go back to work in a field that does not depend on the recovered injury. It's almost like if you were a football player, you got a knee injury, you used to be a running back. You're not going to run nearly as fast as you used to, no matter how healed your knee is. You may no longer play that position of a running back. You might uh, uh, play a left end now. You might not play. You might play a backup running back. You might transition positions from the team that you was on when you got the injury, traded to another team that's less active, where you're still an overachiever, but you're an overachiever in a less active field. So your injury doesn't show because you're still outperforming your peers. You're just outperforming your peers on a lower level. That's what we're talking about here. We're talking about you transitioning in a way where you're not talking bad about the last team. You're just articulating that the circumstances were beyond our control to maintain the employment relationship that we once had. So your story should be truthful to some degree, but it doesn't need to be with the whole truth. You're not obligated to share every single detail. You want to find a version of the truth that fits all three rules. Well, actually, I think there's four rules, but all of the rules. So if you're leaving for a huge raise, you don't need to mention the money. If you're leaving because of a difficult boss, you don't need to mention or name the names, right? So look at a few examples that you can adapt. If you're leaving for a similar role somewhere else, you might say, I've decided to pursue an opportunity that's more closely aligned with my long-term career goals in whatever field that I'm in. You know, it's uh, honest, looking forward, and doesn't put down your current job, right? You're still left for a better position, but you're not saying it that way. If you're making a big career change or starting a business, you might say something like, I'm excited to share that I'm making a career pivot to focus on whatever the new field that you're getting into, which has been a passion of mine for a long time. Or I've decided to take this moment to pursue my goals of building my own business. Now, you, Stephen, switching from the field that you're in right now at the warehouse to the medical field might actually use this exact same exit strategy that your current employer that gave you a shitty raise that you're going to quit with. I am making a career pivot to focus on my education, which has been my passion for a long time because you just got your associate's degree, right? And I'm going to take this moment to pursue my goals. If you wanted to build your own business, because we were talking about the concierge nursing business, it could be a concierge mental health business, right? Or your internships in psychological roles as an understudy, right? That's the kind of information where instead of you saying, fuck this job, they overwork me, I'm understaffed, they don't pay me enough, you're saying, hey, my workload in my education is starting to become overwhelming. I'm transitioning out of my employment to pursue my education, right? So you're not leaving because of them, you're leaving because of you. You know you're leaving because of them, but that's not what you're telling them. That's not what you're telling everybody else over there, right? So if you're leaving for personal reasons, my personal circumstances have shifted, and I'm making this move to better align with my family's needs. Or after a lot of thought, I've decided to take some time off to focus on personal priorities before figuring out my next professional step. Just as important is knowing what not to say. You don't use your narrative to make personal attacks on your employer or the company that you work for. Do not share confidential company drama or gossip in any way. And one more exception, if your reason for leaving involves illegal activity like the harassment or discrimination, that information does not belong in your public exit narrative. whether they're letting you go because you harass somebody or they're letting you go because they're discriminating against you. That narrative does not belong in your public narrative. Those are serious issues that should be handled through formal channels like human resources or with legal counsel, completely separate from your professional resignation. He said, I'm over the bad raises. I have a great supervisor who supports me in school, gives me days off when I ask, and so on. There is one guy I'm into it with, and this show is a good one tonight. I kind of figured that you were going to need it. I'm putting it up here. I'm trying to get it up here as fast as possible. He's almost got into a fight today with the dude I'm into it with, but I have too much to lose. But see, that's the thing. Whatever he's pissing you, what's got him pissing you off? Because whatever he's got you pissed off about, Michael was asking me earlier today. Why would somebody stay on a job that they're not happy with? This is exactly one of the reasons. You have no problem with upper management. Your job is beneficial to your work education schedule, so you're making the money that you need to sustain your standard of living, get an education that you're looking for to move on, but you still have bad blood on the job. If you were transitioning off of the job, you would be transitioning off of the job probably because of this person, but that would not be what you would say. You would use the excuse of pursuing your education due to the difficult workload of being a full-time college student in a four-year institution, and that would be a justifiable transition where behind the scenes your employer knows that you're leaving because the person you almost whooped his ass in the parking lot, that you don't want to be in a hostile working condition. Now, recognizing if one of the reasons why you wanted to leave was because you were in a hostile working conditions with your colleagues, you could negotiate that with your employer, where your employer really likes you, they would prefer for you to stay, and they might take this person off of your shift and never allow you guys to be scheduled together again in order to keep you on the shift. But if they end up shorthanded and that guy's at work, the boss would call you in to cover the difference, and you might have to work with that guy because y'all don't have enough people. Because they're not going to let that guy trick me out of my position. It's not about them tricking you out of your position. So here's the thing. First of all, nobody can fuck you over besides you, right? And I say that because at the end of the day, yes, uh, I know this that if Michael was still here, Michael could give some situations where you can see the Bret Hart screw job where like the boss sets you up for failure, but you have to choose to be in a position to allow yourself to fail. If the boss puts you in a shift that's understaffed and you operate that shift understaffed and you don't meet speed of service, you allowed yourself to be in a shift that's understaffed. You didn't call in extra people. You didn't try to fix the situation. You allowed the situation to fail, right? You have to recognize that if you're put on a shift with a bunch of females that are not appropriately dressed for the job, and one of them makes a negative comment about you to upper management, you allowed yourself to be on a shift where they're not doing it correctly in the first place. That could put you in a compromising position. You know, at the end of the day, they can't walk you out of a situation. You almost got into the fight with the dude on the job. If he's making negative comments about you, he's not tricking you into a fight. Your anger management issues is tricking yourself into a fight. So this guy can't get you ousted based off of his passive aggressive behavior. Your decision to punch him in the mouth because you don't like what he said, or you don't like what he did, or you don't like where he did it. If he put the pallets in the wrong spot knowing it'll piss you off, you got mad at the fact that the pallets weren't pet peeve where you wanted them to be at. Whether or not it's a safety protocol or not, it's not important. It's the fact that it pissed you off. You want to go and run them over with a forklift because it pissed you off. The fact of the matter is, the more appropriate structure for that is to go and notify upper management. Hey, I've noticed these pallets are put in a non-safe position no matter how many times I request them be placed in a safe position. Some managers will say, well, just move them. It's like, bro, every time I move them, they come back. The other person that's putting them here You need to talk to them about the safety concerns about the pallets being out of place. Your pet peeve is that it doesn't belong here. But if you're talking to the boss about a safety issue, that's how you put a stop to the safety issue. You know, when you talk to your landlord about maintenance needing to be done on your property, they can give two shits about it until you start talking about the Fair Housing Act, where the houses are supposed to be in reasonable living condition, and if basic necessities are not functioning, that they have to come and fix that. And this is going to be the part that's very important. You have to practice saying your narratives out loud. It should feel comfortable and it should sound like you in an intellectual fashion, in a professional fashion. This is going to be one of those consistent stories that you repeat calmly to yourself every day until you start repeating it to everyone who asks you. And this is going to be your anchor through the whole process. Who you tell, when you tell it, and how you tell it, it's going to be everything. Getting those sequences wrong is going to be one of the fastest ways to burn bridges because it's a sign of disrespect. The right sequence shows that you're respectful, strategic, and in control of the situation. For a typical employee, the sequence is pretty much non negotiable and follows a clear cascade. Step one, you talk to your direct manager, whoever you're um, directly over you in your employment. Your boss must be the first person to know what your beef is. They're going to be responsible for the team, and your departure directly impacts them. Telling them first lets them process the news privately and start planning things. Schedule a dedicated private meeting. Do not do this in the hallways of the job or over a group chat. A video call is going to be the next best thing to in-person discussions these days. You can hit them with a Zoom or a Google Meets or FaceTime. You know, a lot of times the upper management got flip phones and they don't have FaceTime, so you might be able to get them with an audio call. Or if in the event that you come to the job and ask the boss to have a conversation with you outside, when you ask the boss to talk with you outside, they know it's important. It's not I want to have a talk with you in the office or can we talk in the back room in where the employees fester. No, I want to talk with you completely in the parking lot. That's when they realize that it's something serious. And that to start that conversation, to just walk up to the manager calmly, collectively, professionally, and say, "Hey, when you have a moment, can I have a talk with you in the parking lot?" You're clearly asking for a private conversation, and this is clearly something that nobody needs to hear about. You know, and they're gonna be like, "Oh, all right, give me a minute. Let me square these things away. I'll come get you." And they'll take you out. Some of them go out for a smoke. They'll walk with you and all the way probably sometimes to the dumpster and have a whole conversation with you far away from the building where nobody can sneak outside and pretend like they're working within earshot of what you guys are talking about so that they can overhear the conversation. There's a lot of people on the job that does, which is why you don't want to have a conversation in the office with the door open because somebody will pretend like they're working near the office so that they can hear your conversation. You can't have a conversation in the back room because people will try to find stuff to do in the back room so that they can overhear your conversation. And you definitely don't want to have the conversation on the service floor, whether you're in a warehouse or a restaurant or whatever. You know, step two, human resources. After you've told your direct manager, your next step is usually going to human resources. Your manager will often guide this step. Human resources handles the official paperwork, whatever the final pay is, your benefits, returns of the company property if you have any, and the exit interviews. Following their process shows that you're a professional. Step number three is going to be closing colleagues and direct reports. Only after you and your manager have agreed on communication plans should you tell your immediate team. Your manager needs to decide how and when to share the news more broadly. When you do tell your colleagues, you want to use the same professional narrative that you prepared and reassure them that your commitment to a smooth handover is your intent. Then, step number four, the broader team and external stakeholders. The final step is the wider announcement, which might be team meeting run by your manager or farmer emails when you're sending out a email to the rest of the company, let them know that you're no longer going to be here. If you have external clients, work closely with your manager to craft a coordinated message that reassures them and introduces their new contacts. Like I told you guys earlier, for freelance or partnerships, this is going to be additional. The principle is going to be the same. You want to start with the primary decision maker in your contract, then cascade the information to others. Getting the sequence right is about managing information and respecting the relationships that you have. It does, like Steven said earlier, feels a lot like people pleasing, but it is preserving your reputation as a professional. If every engagement with a police officer was documented in a file where police officers can read that before they come and talk to you, no matter how bad they're mistreating you in this interaction, you are going to talk to them with respect. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Even when they're talking down to you, because you don't want the documentation on file that you are hostile and non cooperative and potentially violent, which will compel other police officers to interact with you with extreme hostility and violence preemptively to subdue any perceived hostility and violence that they assume you're going to perform. One of the reasons why a lot of us were taught hands up when they arrive is because they don't need to assume that we have any weapons, right? We, even though we have the right to behave differently, we prepare for unnecessary behavior by misdirecting their ideas and their stereotypes by behaving differently from the gate. People who are afraid of their safety will put their hands out the window where the people are like, you don't have to do that. I know I don't, but I don't feel safe, so I'm doing it. Right. So that you feel safe. Because apparently, between the two of us, if I don't feel safe, that's too bad. But if you don't feel safe, I'll die. You know? So it's not just people pleasing, it's self preservation. Because we can Bernie Mac slap everybody we don't like. But if we're pegged as a violent person, nobody's going to cooperate with us, right? It's going to keep the rumor mill from spinning out of control, and it's going to let you own the narrative that you create from the start. Because the worst thing in the world that you want to have right now is an employer to go viral about terminating an employee. Y'all seen how all them, what was it, Chipotle employees, they got fired for doing the titty bounce dance thing on social media? I'm sitting over here looking like, why these females is doing this in the first place? First, it started off with a bunch of jits on school buses, and then the adults started doing it. I don't know why the parents weren't disciplining the children when the little girls was out there bouncing around like that. But then when the grown women started bouncing around like that, and it started culturally with the minority women, and then it phased into the non-minority women, and I'm like, oh Lord. I don't care if some men like that. I know that at the end of the day, this is degrading and devaluing behavior. And if it would have been standard operating procedures in a restaurant like Hooters or Buffalo Wild Wings, women would have been appalled by that, but they're voluntarily doing it as a TikTok trend. But the point is that the company fired these women for being inappropriate on the floor. That type of public termination damages your ability to get another job at another industry, because when that company does a public search on you, It shows that you publicly devalued yourself and did it in uniform and damaged the reputation of the company and got fired for it. So you can't control the narrative of why you left your last job. This is why I'm telling you that you've got to get ahead of the problem, communicate things with your employer, work out something that y'all can agree on that acknowledges that you're leaving, but under certain circumstances that certain shit doesn't get discussed. The resignation conversation with your manager is the moment that sets the tone for everything else. And this isn't confrontation. It's going to be calm. It's going to be clear delivery of the final decisions. Your goal is to be firm, respectful, and forward looking. So you remember the 5 part structure that works in almost any situation. It's direct, appreciative, and collaborative. Even if you don't appreciate what's going on, you want to set the framework. Start by signaling that this is an important conversation to them. Thanks for making the time. I want to talk to you directly about an important decision that I've made, especially if you're walking out on the job before they get decide to get rid of you. Part two, you want to state the decisions clearly. Don't dance around it. State your resignation and propose last day. After a great deal of thought, I've decided to resign from my position and I'm proposing that my last day be next Thursday or 2 weeks from today. Give them that date. Part three, you want to be able to give your short explanation. Deliver your pre created exit narrative by creating it before you get there, but you want to keep that narrative brief. You're not trying to give them an autobiography of why you're leaving. I've decided to accept an opportunity that's more closely aligned with my long term career goals, and then pause. Let your manager process that. Don't feel the need to fill the silence with more information because you'll end up giving them too much information and giving them a reason to fire you today. Then you want to express a genuine appreciation. This is crucial for preserving the relationship. I really want to work, or no, I really want to thank you for the opportunity that you've given me here. And I'm truly grateful for everything that I've learned and for your grace and guidance. Then you want to pivot to the handover, immediately shifting the focus to the collaborative solutions. And this is going to show that you're focused on a smooth transition. My main priority over the next 2 weeks is to ensure a seamless handover. I want to do everything I can to help, and I'm happy to start putting together a handover plan. Now, this happens in a lot of bigger structures, but in a lot of the lower level scenarios, you might just need to show somebody how to use a forklift or how to use a computer. And then after that, you're kind of done, right? To be ready for their reaction, that's something that you need to get used to next. Because if they're surprised or disappointed, you still have to stay calm and listen to what they have to say without interruptions. You can validate their feelings. I understand this is unexpected without reopening your discussion. It's like, man, I wasn't expecting this. Yeah, I know it was a little bit short notice. I completely understand how you feel. But you're not going to reinforce your previous statements by restating them a second time. You said what you said, and that's it. Be prepared for a counteroffer. Because if they try to convince you to stay, you have to listen respectfully. But if you did your prep work, you know your reasons are solid. The best response is appreciative but firm. Because remember, you're not relocating because you want a raise in this company. If they weren't willing to give you the raise, you don't want to continue having to offer to quit in order to continue to get raises. Because eventually they're going to treat you as unreliable and fire you randomly and call it downsizing. So if you're leaving because this isn't what you want to do, this isn't the kind of pay that you want to have, them offering you more money on your way out when they refuse to give it to you when you asked for the last 4 months, it's too late now to discuss that. You're going to now respond to them with, I'm incredibly grateful for that, meaning the offer that they gave you, the counter offer. It means a lot. However, I've made my decision based on my long term goals and I am committed to this next step. You're not flexing on this. By sticking to this framework, you maintain control. You deliver the news clearly. You show respect and immediately frame yourself as a partner in solving the problem of your departure because you're leaving whether they want you to or not, right? Now, while face to face conversations is the most personal part, the formal written documentation is what makes it official. And these documents create a clear record of your departure, protecting both you and the company from any misunderstandings down the road. The resignation letters for most employees is a formal resignation letter that maintains a standard position. You want to submit it to your manager right after your conversation, be it in a writing, a PDF file sent in a text message, or print it out, scan it, sign it. I would hold on. Yeah, print it out, sign it, then scan it. That's what I would do. Reason being, you print, date, sign, scan. The copy you gave to them is the copy that you have signed so that when if something happens legally after the fact, you have a date stamped copy of the documents that uh they didn't that they got that they didn't take into consideration. Now the resignation hold on, where was I? The golden rule here is to keep the resignation short and polite and professional. So you're not writing a whole book about why you're leaving. This is not the place for long explanations or any feelings. A simple, effective template would be the date, manager's name, their title, the company they work for, and you start the letter with Dear, whatever the manager's name is. Please accept this as a formal notification of my resignation from my position as whatever your title is at whatever company you work for. My last day of employment will be whatever the last day you decide. Thank you again for the valuable opportunities that I've had here, and I have sincerely enjoyed my time on the team. I am committed to ensuring a smooth transition. Please let me know how I can best support the handover of all of my responsibilities. Sincerely, put your signature, type your name. That's it. This letter is clean and positive. It'll be placed in your employee file, which likely would be observed by whoever asked for your employee file. So think of it as a permanent record of your professionalism. You're not complaining about the guy who pissed you off on a job. You're not complaining about the lazy manager. You're not complaining about the hostile customers. You're not complaining about the dangerous work environment that you're in. You're making it clear that you're leaving. You're willing to help them transition someone else into your position. You appreciate their time. Have a blessed day. That's it. While verbal agreements can be disputed, a written record creates clarity. Just be aware that the letter itself doesn't bind your employer to extra benefits unless it's part of a separate formal written agreement. The contract notice that you would get for a freelancer. Your exit is governed by your contracts. Provide a formal notice of termination according to those specific terms that is written in your contract, referencing the termination clause and respecting the notice period time. If they say that you got to give 30 days or so many days before the project is over, you've got to give that notice before the project is over. You can't just give them a 30-day notice 2 days before you leave. You have to meet that time clock. Partnership exit terms is another thing you got to pay attention to. Exiting a business partnership is far more complex and should almost always be handled with a lawyer. The documentation is extensive and involves formalizing the valuation of your shares, your payment terms, and legal transfers of ownership. Regardless of the document, the principle is going to be the same. You're formalizing your exit in writing. A clean paper trail is the formal seal on a well executed departure. And this is going to be the heart of the playbook. Quitting isn't going to be a one-way street. It's the opening of a negotiation over the terms of your departure. This covers the four key areas. Like I said before, time, money, scope, and reputation. So Negotiating your time. Remember this: your period is often negotiable. 2 weeks is common, but you must pay attention that you can actually ask for 3 or 4 weeks. And this can be a powerful gesture of goodwill, right? Negotiate the money. Your baseline is getting everything that you're owed: final salaries, unused PTOs, any guaranteed bonuses. The true negotiation typically starts with your severance pay, right? Three, negotiating the scope. Your final weeks are for transitioning, not taking on new projects. You need to proactively define that scope of your work with your manager, because your goal is to document everything, wrap up key projects, and train your replacement if possible or if necessary. Politely pushing back on requests to start major new work. And you can frame it constructively like this: to make sure I create the best possible handover documents, I think it is best if I focus my remaining time exclusively on transferring my current projects and knowledge, right? So if they need you to do significant work beyond that, you can open a conversation about a separate short-term consulting agreement, which allows for them to pay you separately as an unofficial employee of the company, which could ultimately become your permanent relationship with them going forward in the future, even if you have a job with somebody else, right? And then remember, negotiating at reputation, because your reputation is going to be priceless. And that is a non negotiable expectation. You must make sure that you prioritize how your departure will be communicated by your employer. And you can also lock in those future references. And a more advanced move is to ask for a formal letter of recommendation before you leave. A simple direct ask works wonders. I've really valued my time working with you. Would you be comfortable serving as a, a positive reference for me in the future? And by tackling these four areas, which is time, money, scope, and reputation, you're going to turn your exit into a comprehensive agreement that serves your interests and the preservation of the relationship. The quality of your handover is going to be your final statement. So it's going to be the ultimate act of professionalism and the best way to generate goodwill that will pay off for years to come. And this is going to be the chance to over deliver and leave your team not with a to do list, but with a full blown playbook for your success, right? So a great handover document is going to be more than just status updates. It's going to be a master guide to your role. So here's what it should include: the project status and summaries. For every major project, create a one page, its goals, current status, key contacts, upcoming deadlines, and immediate next steps. Links to all relevant files. Someone should be able to read this and get up to speed in minutes. So they're not getting an entire dossier. Um, a direct a directory of key contacts. So don't just make a list of names, add context. Who are they? What's their role? Are there any quirks in the relationship that a new client would need to be, or not client, but a new employee handling the contact or the client needs to know about? And this inside knowledge is invaluable and shows that you're committed to a smooth transition. Process guides and institutional knowledge. And this is going to be a secret sauce of your departure packet, because you're documenting your regular processes. How do you run the weekly reports? Where are the passwords securely stored? Write down all the unwritten rules and institutional knowledge in your head that you've accumulated over the period of time that you've worked for the company. This saves your successor and your team from reinventing the wheel. And then lastly, you have a roadmap of risks and opportunities. A truly great handover looks ahead. What potential roadblocks are on the horizon? What upcoming opportunities uh, should your successor jump on? Which that's like, because this is going to show that you care about the long-term success of the work, but it's equivalent to if you sold a car to somebody but you gave them the maintenance logs and the recommendations for upcoming maintenance and repairs. Now they know what they're getting themselves into and they know what they need to do to it to maintain it. And if you've been taking good care of it and they are going to take good care of it, they're going to be prepared for the upcoming projected maintenance timelines. Once the document is drafted, don't just email it on your last day. Schedule a meeting to walk your manager and your colleagues through it. This active handover combined with a great document is the ultimate bridge building tool. And it's also going to be your legacy, especially if it starts becoming standard practice in the company. As your last days get closer, managing your digital and physical footprint is going to be a critical step that shows professionalism and protects everybody. A clean separation prevents from future headaches and any security risks, starting with the digital cleanup. Your work computer is company property. Systematically removing all your personal files, photos, documents, etc. While you should clear your personal credentials from your browser for privacy reasons, be mindful of your company's policies on data retention. You shouldn't be using company computers for personal shit anyway, but if you are, make sure that you clear out as much of it as possible. The goal is to protect your privacy without improperly deleting company data. It's smart to do this type of stuff gradually as you work, well before you give a notice. But in case you're asked to leave immediately, there's only so much clearing out data storage that you can do. You want to organize your professional digital files. Don't leave a chaotic desktop. Create a clean folder system and then archive old projects and label current files clearly. This simple act of organization will be a huge appreciation from the parties that you leave this information behind for. And then when you clean up your physical part of your job on your last day, you return all company property, laptops, phones, badges, keys, uniforms in some situations. Get a receipt or written confirmation that everything has been returned so that they're not billing you for it. Clean out your personal space. Don't just leave it empty, leave it clean. So don't just take what's yours off of the desk and be like, fuck this shit, I'm out. Take your little Mickey Mouse bobblehead and walk out. You want to actually clean the desk as if no one was ever there, right? It's a small gesture that speaks volumes about your respect for the workplace. This cleanup is the final logistical step because it ensures that there's no loose ends and completes your exit on a note of undeniable competence. And it also makes sure that you didn't forget anything that you were supposed to take with you when you started packing. The exit interview is usually your final formal conversation with your employer, often with HR as well. Many people see it as a chance to either dreadfully avoid conflict or finally vent. Both situations are mistakes. You want to treat it as a strategic conversation where your goal is to be constructive and protect your reputation. Your mindset should be to provide high level, systematic feedback, not personal commentary. Talk about systems and processes, not the people. For instance, instead of saying my manager was a micromanager, you could frame it as a process issue. I think the team could be empowered with more autonomy to improve efficiency. This feedback is constructive and less likely to be seen as a personal attack on your supervisor. Before the interviews, you want to prepare a few talking points, one or two areas where the company could genuinely improve, and one positive point about what you value. Now, this balanced approach shows you're being fair. During the interview, you want to stay calm and professional. Remember that your comments will likely be documented. They're going to write this stuff down, which is why you can't just flip them off and walk out. And depending on the company's policy, they information can often be shared, especially to your employers. So it is best to assume that your feedback will create a permanent record. Beyond the formal interview, you'll get the "so what really happened" question from your colleagues. And this is going to be where you exit the narrative and still be best friends. Resist the urge to gossip. You can deflect politely. It was a mix of factors, but the new opportunity is just a better fit for my long term goals. I'd rather not get into it. I definitely don't want to get into all the details, but I'm really grateful for my time here and excited for what's next. You know, either way, by navigating both formal and informal questions in these fashions, you ensure your final words at the company are as professional as your first words. Now, a successful exit doesn't end on your last day. The job is over, but the relationships aren't. Your former colleagues and managers are now a key part of your professional network. Tending to this network is an investment in your future. So on your last day, you want to send a thoughtful farewell email, thanking your team, wishing the company well, and sharing your LinkedIn URL profile for anyone who wants to stay in touch. You want to make sure that you're giving a professional profile that has you in a professional light because you do not want to tag them on your Twitter or your TikTok or your Kick or any platform that's got you keg standing, dropping it like it's hot, or doing anything that was on the Cash Money Records from the 99 2000 video. If you was doing one of those Anaconda backing it up things with Lil Kim or Sir Mix-a-Lot, if any of that stuff is going on, you don't want to use that platform. You want to use a platform where you are only observed in a positive, professional, and potentially educational light. Once you left, make an effort to stay connected on LinkedIn more than anything else. Engage with their posts, congratulate them on promotions, and share relative insights. These small interactions will keep you on their radar in a positive way. And beyond that, considering a genuine check in every 6 months or so, and a simple email asking how they are and sharing a brief update goes a long way. The key is to be authentic and not just reach out when you need something. Reach out because you have time to see if they need something. Just as importantly, committing to only speaking fairly and respectfully about your former employer is something that we have to practice. The professional world is very small, no matter how big we think it is. We just talked about this the other day, where they brought out about 179,000 jobs, but we're about 3.5 million people needing jobs. And so 179,000 jobs didn't really do much for the unemployment line. The professional world is very small. And negative energy has a way of getting back to people. When asked about your last job, stick to your positive, forward looking narrative. It signals maturity and loyalty, qualities any future employee will value. And since everything is public record now, you'll see a lot of people passing information in the click of a button. By viewing these relationships as long term assets, your turn of departure from an ending into a transition, the goodwill that you build will be invaluable, providing you with a network of advocates and future referrals. So while all these principles apply to leaving a business partnership, this kind of exit is far more complex. It's less like quitting a job and more like a cooperative transaction, or more importantly, to identify a divorce. You're untangling shared finances, assets, and legal duties so that the stakes are much higher for you in that particular type of situation. And the most important documents in your partnership agreement are the ones you need to pay attention to. Ideally, it's going to have a buy sell provision that outlines the exact process for a partner's exit, including how the business will value and how the departing partner gets paid out of that value. Now, if you don't have one, you want to proceed with extreme caution and get help from legal and financial advisors in order to get one. The negotiation revolves around a few key issues: how much your shares are worth. If the agreement doesn't specify a method, you'll need to agree on one, which is often going to mean hiring a neutral third party business appraiser for an objective valuation. Buyouts and payment structures. We're almost done here, guys. I told you it was going to be a while. Uh, Once a value is set, you negotiate the buyout terms, either lump sum, payments over several years. The structure has major tax implications, so financial advice is going to be crucial here. Then you have your liabilities and client continuity. Who is responsible for the business debts? Who will clients be transitioned? And you will need to ensure that you are legally released from any personal guarantees on any loans. Now, the non competition clause that we talked about before, partnerships, non competes are often much stricter than employment constraints. So you need to negotiate the scope and the duration to ensure that they don't unfairly prevent you from earning a living in the present or in the future. Now, because these talks can be so complex and emotionally loaded, bringing in a neutral third party like a professional mentor or ensuring both sides have separate legal counsel is often the wisest path. The goal is a clean break that allows everyone to move forward without hostility. It, critic, it is critically important to make you clear that this needs to be crystal clear. The playbook is for professional departures under normal circumstances. So if you're leaving because of serious and illegal misconduct, like harassment, discrimination, fraud, or retaliation, the strategy changes completely. Because in these situations, a polite narrative and a smooth handover are not priorities. Your priority is to protect yourself and see that the misconduct is addressed through proper channels. Now, this is not the time to talk to higher managers or anybody, or take the high road and walking away quietly, right? Because you're not supposed to take the high road and silently take whatever they give you and leave, or take nothing and walk off. You should immediately seek advice from an employment lawyer to understand your rights. They can guide you on how to document the misconduct and report it to the right bodies, which could include human resources, an ethics hotline, or government agency like Equal Opportunity or Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Woo! We're almost done. Now, handling these situations requires legal strategy, not just a professional one. Lawyers can help you navigate the process, negotiate a potential settlement, and protect you from retaliation. Trying to manage this kind of departure without legal guidance is going to be a significant risk. Whew. Now we've covered a complete playbook for turning any departure into a masterful executed negotiation by preparing privately, defining your goals, crafting your story, and managing the process with professionalism. You can protect your finances, enhance your reputation, and strengthen your network. And you guys got to remember 3 core ideas for a successful exit. The last impression rule. Remember, I told you this. People remember how you leave. Make it a lasting impression of professionalism and sport. The 2 door test. Every action should keep the door open to your former network and the door open to your next opportunity. And the 3 C's of exit communication. Always be clear, calm, and constructive. Leaving a role is a defining career moment. By finding this playbook, you can navigate it with confidence and control, and you can ensure that you leave not with burdened bridges, but with relationships and a reputational thing that will serve you for years to come. Whoo, that was a lot of information. So, if you guys found this very, very, very deep discussion valuable, if you found that it helped you, please make sure that you haven't liked this, subscribe to the channel today. Make sure that you take the time to like and subscribe to the channel. And we're going to be giving you more deep dives into navigating your career. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What is the single biggest challenge that you faced when thinking about leaving a job? Your story can help everyone here learn and grow. Even if you were a kid and you had certain things that you used to want back in the day, but you did not pursue them back then. Nowadays, you can articulate that it is important and relevant for you to accomplish that, and here's why. So, with that being said, we're going to start off by saying, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you, ladies, to make it make sense. So, ladies, please make it make sense. Fellas, I give you this information to make you guys higher value men so that you can prioritize the things in your personal life that are inside of your control and make those necessary changes and then navigate around the things that are outside of your control. Ladies, y'all have the capabilities to, while this being a male driven podcast from the male's perspective, you make yourselves higher value women as well. But this will require you to prioritize your 20 and 30-year plan and reverse engineer them to what you're going to do today to achieve that plan. And then you want to pay attention to your potential suitors' personality, characteristics, and skill set and capabilities to determine their integrity, their motivation to determine if they can achieve their goals and how well their goals mesh with your goals, right? As long as both of you have long-term satisfaction on your plate, it'll be easier for y'all to survive instead of short-term gratification. So like I tell you guys on a regular basis, 2 people can make it to $1 million faster than 1. It just requires you to know what you're looking for and where you're looking for it at. Now, we burned through a lot of stuff. Tomorrow night's show, we're going to be trying to start reasonably on time because we're going to have to cut out a little bit early. So we're going to be coming in a little bit early, or actually more closer to the on time limit, so that we can cover the full show and not be pressured for the following night. So I want you guys to make sure that you linger for the earlier time slot, and we're going to go ahead and get prepared for tomorrow night's show. That's all I have for you guys for tonight. Special shout out to Steven and Mr. Satellite, and Michael, and OG Kicks. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I will see you guys tomorrow night.
Higher ground. Used to chase validation, now I validate My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command.